Okay, now we're ready to continue do the kit bash work on these. But before that, you remember that I put these into a bark folder. I'm going to do another thing. I'm going to first select low poly ones, and if I go to here and I start to visualize the wireframe, you see that these are low poly ones. So I'm going to select them and put them into low poly folder. And this way I'm able to select them later on only using a single click and hide them, unhide them, and do whatever I want to. And I'm going to rename this folder to high poly instead of bark. And I'm going to put everything high poly in here and everything low poly in here as well. So later on when I'm going to export it, for example, I only do a single click and export the low polys and hide these and export the high poly with a single click. And this way I found it to be a lot better. Okay, let's go for this grass works. And for the grasses, I'm going to create a single plane, and this single plane is going to act as a baking plane for us. And we have enough variation in here. Let me just resize them down just a bit so that they fit into the borders, and I'm going to take a copy again and bring these here so that we have enough when texturing these grass blades inside Substance Painter. And let me bring this plane, or let me select these, and I'm going to bring them up the plane so that when I start to bake them I get as much information as I want from these. Okay, but there's something to be done, and that is selecting this. Let me go here and select this and bring it just a bit to the side so that we have enough space in between these, or I can bring this over to here as well. So let me select these and these and the plane as well. Let me select all of them. And for the plane, it's good to bake on a single plane, but I'm going to tessellate it a bit because a bit of time I found that tessellating will care for the normals a lot better. And as for the UVs, if I go to here, you see the UVs are alright. You see the UVs are alright and in their own place from 0 to 1 UV space. So this one, let me name it grass plane, and these ones grass blade. Okay, so let me hide the UV editor, and I'm going to select all of them and give them a grass material. Okay, now all of them share the same material so that its substance, it tries to connect them to each other. So let me select these and bring them to the side so that it's easier to hide it or do whatever I want. So I'm going to select this and hold down M and put them into high poly folder, and this one and put it into low poly folder. Okay, this is now in the low poly folder, and right now I can really toggle them on and off with a single click, and I bring them back if I needed to. And I really do not change them in everything. I only want them to be in the same place so that when I try to bake them, we really do not get any errors. Okay, this one was for the grass. And now let's go to take care of this banana kit. Okay, let me bring the pivot in the center and go into edit mode. And again, I'm going to hit P and separate by loose parts. And this way we get these four kits separated from each other. So this one, one, and one. And now let me take these and bring them down and hide these low poly and high poly as well. So I'm going to again create a plane so that we use it as a baking plane. Let me tessellate it fairly much. Something like this, okay, so that we have a squares all over. Okay, and now I need to do a bit of kit bashing. Let me put the pivot in the center of them so that it's easier for me to manipulate them. And let's bring this here, and I can shrink the size down a bit and bring it to the top so that it's above the plane and we have no baking problems at all. So let's take this one as well. Let me see how much I have resized this. It's 0.004. So let's look at this and take a copy and bring it here. I'm going to put the same value on here as well so that it's consistent all across. Okay, and now let's bring this one to the top of this and make something like this. Okay, and now we are ready to create a lot of banana kits from this 4 kits as well. So let me take this, and I feel like I can increase the size of this one just a bit and bring it down because the leaves are wider. Okay, let's bring this one up to here. And one thing that I can do is manipulate this one a bit. And I can go into edit mode and use the proportional editing. Let's use that to see if that works or not. And try to bring this up. Okay, it works. I only need to bring this one top so that it's above the leaf size in here. And now it's okay. And now let's copy these and bring this in here. And again, I'm going to use the same stem and use it in here as well because these are all the same leaf and they all share the same proportions as well. So let me take these and bring them right here, or I can really turn it around to save a bit of more texture space. Okay, something like this. Let me take this and take these two together, and I can really take this and bring it down just a bit. Okay, this is to get the stem on top of the leaf. Okay, this one is good as well. And now let's copy this again and bring it here. And we need to bring this one in the center and bring it on the top of this one. And looks like I can increase the size just a bit to save a bit of more texture space and bring it down right until here. Okay, and this is it. And using this kit I can really produce a lot of variation in terms of this banana kit, and I can take them, really duplicate them across to create everything that I want. And let's take these again and bring them right in here so that we can create more variations out of this one. So let me take this and I can really name this one banana plane and take everything but that one and call these banana high, something that we remember. And let's select all of them and create a material for them and call the material banana. so that later on when baking inside Substance we really get no problems. So I'm putting this one into the low poly folder and these ones into the high poly. And since the high poly and low poly are hidden, we are really hiding them as well. You see, but they are here and we can really toggle them on and off. Okay, and now let's take these ones and I feel like I can delete them because I really do not need them. Or let's keep them and I can use this alongside with this as well. And another benefit of reusing stuff as much as possible. So let me take this one and bring it here so that we can have enough variation in here as well. Okay, those two were a lot easier in terms of manipulating. You see, if I connect them, you see it's only a matter of just putting things inside the 0 to 1 UV space. And for this one, I really had to just connect two pieces together to form the thing that I wanted. But for these ones, it's not the same thing. I'm going to first form a smaller cluster, and from the a smaller cluster create a whole thing, and it's going to take a lot more longer. But in the end, you learn a lot from the creation process. So let's hide these, and I'm going to do the fern kit next. So for the fern kit, it's the same. I'm going to create a cluster. Let me separate all of the parts. Okay, I'm going to first create a cluster, and then using that cluster, I form the bigger shape, and then use variation, create variations from that. So let's create a single plane spot for starters in here. And in the end, we're going to pack a lot of things into this. So let me take these and bring them up. Of course, for the pivot, let me take them and I can place the pivot somewhere around here because I want the pivot to be in here so that the manipulation of them would be a lot easier. If I drag them from here, see, being able to rotate from here is a lot more better than rotating from the middle. So let me place the pivot in here. You just select some vertices and make them pivot. And for the leaves as well, I'm going to put the pivot right in here. Okay, this one and this one as the last one. So before anything, let's look at the references. And you see, by looking at these references, I'm going first to create something like this. We're going to create this cluster. Let me duplicate it, and I'm going to rotate it so that we are able to see that in that direction as well. So we're going to create some clusters. You see, clusters, the leaves become the size wise, they are bigger when they are in the beginning, and some randomization happens, but overall they get smaller and smaller as they get towards the top. So we're going to create this effect. We're going to start big and go towards the smaller portions in the top. So let me take this. I'm going to make this one first. Let me bring these over, and I'm going to use this and duplicate these as well. So I'm going to start big, but big enough to make sure that the size wise they get something like this. I'm going to start with big and create a form like that. Okay, and now let's take these, and I want to bring these down so that they are in the same level as each other. And when we are going to bake them inside normal map, we do not get any errors. So you see that it started big. Let me resize this so that we are able to see a lot from Blender. And I have other images to look at too. For example, this one, you see, it shows how big they are in the beginning and go more towards the small. So I'm going to drag this one out also to look at them in the beginning stages. So I'm going to first create the clusters. So let's go about it. I'm going to go something like this, and then let me duplicate this also and make it something in the size like that. Okay, and this one as well. Rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, something like that. And I'm going to kit bash from these three only, and I'm going to use them. Let's make them in the same level. Okay, now they are in the same level, and I'm going to bring this out. Okay, I'm going to use these three and do as much variation as I can to make sure that there is enough variation in this. So let's look at the reference to see what we get from the references as well. And rotation wise, you see some of them are pointing towards the top and some of them pointing towards down. But overall, the starting angle becomes to get tighter as they go to the top. For example, they start with something like this, and in the end, they really start to do an angle like this. So we're going to repeat the same angle as well. So let me take this and do some variations on them as well. So I'm going to take copy from this, make it a smaller, and this is the repetition to the end. We're going to create something like this. We start big and go narrow as we move to the top. Okay, let's take this one and rotate, and as I go along I do a small rescale and then rotate to the top so that when we get there, there's a angle like this happening in here. I'm tightening the angle as I go to the top, and I'm rescaling these as well. So let me take these and scale them and then rotate them towards the top and do some slight variations as well. And then later on, when I've finished with this, I'm going to take them and duplicate them to the other side as well. So let's now rotate from here, make them a smaller, slight rotation and some offset. And really doesn't matter if some of the leaves in the beginning or even in the middle stages go a bit offset, something like this, for example, being bigger than what they should be. This randomization always happens in nature, and really do not care about that. Just make that right. And since these are going to be so small, really baked into a normal map, we're not really caring so much. We only need to make the proportions right. So let's now again take something from here and copy that to the top. And first do a general rescaling. Okay, something like this. And now rotate them to the top. Okay, something like this. And I'm proud of it. Just bring them here. And since this is really going to be viewed from the far, really nobody is paying attention that we are creating this from only 3 or 4 clusters. And this is the beauty of it. You really start to kit bash, start create some kits, take a look at the reference to see what you want, and then you're really able to kit bash and create a lot of entities from repetitive things. And the main portion of this course is learning on how to create a lot of things from kit bashing. You see, we were able to do some plank and bark kit and really created a whole dock and a barn out from those. And really, you reusing stuff is a good thing and you should learn it. Okay, let's rescale these and bring them a bit closer, because if you look at the reference, the more they go to the top, because they are getting smaller, the spacing between them also decreases. So I'm going to do that effect also. Okay, and now let's take from here, bring them to the top. First, a general rescaling to make sure that rescaling happens, and then rotate them and bring them here and do a rotation to make sure that they go to the top. Okay, and one more thing that you can do is you can bring them, when you created the cluster, you can bring them into ZBrush and start to attach them into each other, and that makes sure that these get attached to the stem and you get an extra level of realism in there. But that is not what I'm really going for, because the amount that I'm getting there isn't so worth it to spend so much time on creating something like that. Okay, this looks like to have a good starting point, and I'm going to, okay, something like this. Really, I love it. Okay, and now let's again take from here and do a general rescale and rotation. And you see how beautiful using the kit bashing system we were able to generate new ideas, generate new things from repetitive concepts. Okay, and from time to time go into the view and start to look from far to see what image you are creating. And when I made sure that I created these in the right way, I duplicate them across and do a lot of variations there as well to make sure that I have enough variation. Okay, it's good. And now let's copy this to this side, make it really small. And I want to cover this size with a couple of more variations from this so that I get that angling there. And you see, let me copy this, and you see how we really got from there, from the something like 90-degree starting point to something like that, just by duplicating the stuff and do random rotations. Okay, this one looks like it needs to come down, or let me bring it up, and later on I will touch this to make sure that it's right. So let me take all of these and let me do a duplicate. Let me bring them here, and I'm going to mirror them to the other side. And let me drag these over, and I'm going to mirror them. So it's easily doable if I go to object and mirror, and I'm going to mirror them in X. You see this red axis belongs to X. So I'm going to mirror them along X. Okay, we now got something like this to make this all right. So let's take all of them, and that looks like I need to bring these in to make sure that the scaling is happening there. But now it's too uniform. So I need to do some rotations, variations, and things like that. For example, even I can take these, bring this over, and use this in here to make sure that I have enough variation to cover that. So you see, we created a good variation in here, and this is the same procedure that we are going to follow. We are going to create as much randomness in here. We're not going to be so much random because that really doesn't happen in nature, but we're going to be random enough so that we hide the symmetry that is going on in here. So let's do this. And one thing that happens when mirroring things, if you start to apply the transformation on these, I believe some normals get wrong. And now let me go to the normal view, and you see the normals got wrong. But to remedy that, you really need to select the object and hit Shift N to calculate the normals outside, and this fixes the normals as well. So let me select all of them, and if you do not that, you're getting rendering errors inside Unreal and Substance as well. You're not seeing this side because the normals need to be flipped. And that is something that it happens a lot when mirroring things, so have that in mind as well. So select all of them and go to the apply menu, the transformation menu. I need to apply the scale, and I believe rotation. Yeah, you saw that it applied the transformations for us. And now let's go selecting all of them, go to the edit view. It takes a bit of time to go into edit view because there are a lot of polygons in here. So it crashed, and I told you that Blender is a bit laggy when working on big portions of polygons. So I'm selecting them in a smaller portions and go to fix them. Okay, let's select them and go into polygon mode and select Shift N to calculate the normals outside. Now the normals have been fixed. You only need to go and work in a smaller portions to make that right. Okay, again Shift N to recalculate the normals. Okay, this one fixed as well. And now let's take these and go portion by portion and fix the normals. Select all and Shift and N to recalculate the normals. Okay, this is done, and this will save you a lot of trouble when it comes to rendering these later out. So calculate the normals again. Okay, now let's go for the last portion. Let's select this and all of them. And this happens in the mirrored objects. You really do not have to do this on these. And if you're doing something that resets the transformation, try not to transform the pivot because the pivot gets wrong, and I did the same mistake. You see, this one is here, and since I did apply all, you shouldn't have really done that. The pivot has become a part of the center, and now if I try to rotate this, I get something like this, and I really do not want it. So for now, let's put the pivot in the center and do the work. It will do the work, but have that in mind. Apply the transformation one at a time to get your things right. So let's select all of these, and I'm going to hit the quick pivot so that the pivot of them becomes centered in here. So let's go back to our normal work and I start to do the randomization in here. I don't want this part and this part feels symmetrical. I just need to add some variations to make sure that naturalistic effect is there. Okay, just try to be so random about them. And I can even take time to displace these and add another layer of randomization as well. You see, now the randomization is a lot better. So this one is for the first cluster. That looks like I need to bring this here. And do some randomization in here as well. Okay, this one is good for the first one. And now let's take this. And if I start to visualize this, you see in some places it needs to come down. For example, in this part it needs to be risen up. And in some places it needs to become in the level of that. So the way that I'm going for this one is I'm going to bring this world center in here. I hit Shift and S and bring the world center to selected so that everything that I spawn is going to be spawned in here. And I'm going to spawn a curve. So let's go for a path curve and rotate the curve and rotate it to match the direction of this one. Okay, looks like I need to rotate it 90 degrees. And let me see that. I can even rescale this to make this fit the proportions of this one. Now I'm going to select this. Let me drag. Okay, now I'm going to select this and bring the curve modifier. And this curve modifier is a deformer. I select the objects and bring a curve in here. Let me bring this to its own place. And now let's use this curve. And if I try to manipulate the curve, you see this one also gets manipulated as well. So let me take this one and I need to bring this up just a bit to make sure that it fits the proportions of there. Okay, something like this, and we really did a great job on that. So I'm going to select my object and apply the curve. And now if I manipulate the curve, it's no longer affecting that. So let's delete this one. And this is the one that I'm happy with. Let's select all of them and bring or select this one as the last object and hit Ctrl J so that all of them get attached to each other. And now this is part of the one object, and bring the world origin to its place because I need to see where the pivot of this one is. So I'm going to place the pivot in here. And the pivot really doesn't matter on this one. Yeah, the pivot doesn't matter. I'm going to center the pivot and place this one in here because we're not manipulating this for now. So let's bring this right here. I need to bring this above the level of the plane so that when we try to bake it, we get all of the information possible out of this one. So I'm going to save this version because I'm getting some errors because of the high polygon count in here. So let me first save this scene and save a new incremental save out of this one to create a new scene. And now after that, I'm going to remove this high poly and low poly folders because they are adding a lot to this save file and it gets heavy. And sometimes I get some crashing errors as well. So let me bring this up. And this is the low poly section. Let me take these and delete them and also delete these as well. And now take the high poly folder and delete portion by portion so that it gets smaller in the rendering section. Okay, and now I believe I can save it a lot faster than that. Yeah, and later on when I've finished creating these, I will merge the scenes together because I have kept a backup version so that I can go back to there. So let me take this and I can really resize it to get some resolution back. This is 0 to 1 UV space and I can really use everything in between that. So let's drag this in. And this is okay for now. So let's go and create the next one. Now I'm using this one and the same procedure. I'm taking these and I start to form the shape. Let's make them smaller. Okay, and now I'm starting with a 90-degree angle and slowly move towards the top. So these are hanging over each other. I'm going to bring them right here and I start to make the angle right. And of course rescaling, the general rescaling to make sure that the leaves get smaller as they go towards the top. So let me compare them to each other. It's fine. And now it's a matter of duplicating these and rotating and resizing to make sure that the scale and proportion is right. Okay. Bring them up, rescale, and I need to set the pivot to bounding box center so that all of them rescale at the same time. The previous section, the previous rotation method was individual origins so that all of them get rotated based on their origins. I wanted a uniform rotation so that I had to make that right. So let's again take these and I'm working in bigger portions in here. So first let's make the rotation right and then individually bring them in place and fix the angle and the scaling as well. So let's look from the top view. Just some manual rotation and it will be okay. Look from the top and it's alright. So let's again take from these and bring them up. First rescale to make sure that the size of them is okay. And then fix the rotation and scaling and give as much randomness in the beginning as you can to make this look beautiful and natural at the same time. See, the angle needs to tighten up there. So let's make this right and bring this down. And I may end up using only these two for the ferns, because the variation on this can be done using the texturing phase as well. In Substance, I try to create as much variation from this as possible. So this is alright, but I need to make the angle right a bit. Just make sure that the starting angle gets right. So this one is getting done. And now let's take from here and bring them to the top. First, I need to make sure that they are smaller. Make sure that the starting angle gets right. And now this is where the individual origins get in place. I want to set the origin to individual origins so that when I rotate them to the top, each one gets rotated based on its starting angle. And this is fine, really. Okay? Just some manual rotation and rescaling needed. I really did the wrong thing. Okay, and now I need to fix the starting angle on these. And make sure that the more they go towards the top, they become something like a 90-degree angle in there, okay? Let's take these two, bring this one out a bit, and make this really 90-degree angle. And I need to bring this up to cover this area as well. Just copy this and give variation in here to make that right. Okay, now let's select all of these instead for the stem and this one, and I need to hit Shift D to duplicate them, and now bring them to that side, and it is caused by the high amount of polygon that we have here. So let's mirror them, object mirror in global X. And now if you remember, we should try to fix the normals as well. Let me select all of them and go to transformation menu, but only apply the scale. And then let's go to see the normals, and you see the normals need to be fixed. Okay, easy fix, just take them, and you see the pivot of them is in their own place because I didn't apply the pivot at all. And this is good. Okay, let's go and select all of them and recalculate the normals to make them fixed. And do portion by portion so that you don't get any errors. Okay, select all. So I lost a lot of progress, excuse me. I end up really using this one and duplicating all across. It's fine enough. And let's rotate it across and leave the variation creation for substance. So this one is good. And let's take these two and drag another. So I got lots of errors in Blender, and because this mesh is so heavy, now I'm going to import it into ZBrush and decimate it a bit so that I have easier time manipulating that inside Blender, because I wanted to take multiple copies out of this one, and it was something like 10 millions of polygons, and it was really heavy for Blender. So let me take this, this side, and now what I need to do is decimate these to a reasonable number so that it's easier to manipulate that inside Blender. So let me recalculate. And because it's a heavy mesh, it really can take a while to create, but it's worth the process. And because these are really fairly tessellated meshes, I really got some errors inside Blender. And as I said, Blender is a bit lacking when it comes to work with high quality, especially something like this that I had to duplicate multiple times. I was getting crashed a lot of times, so I decided to export it as FBX and try to decimate it so that I can work better inside Blender, because it was not about this mesh, it was something like 10 million of polygons, and we had a lot of more kits to do. So it would have taken something like 50 million polygons, and it was really a pain trying to work and record on the same time into Blender. So let's go and bake. Okay, and now we only have 1 million polygon. Of course, when you try to export into Blender, I believe it becomes 2 million polygons because it's active point and not polygons or something like that. So I'm going to export this back. Let me export it, and as a FBX, and overwrite this file and name it edited. Okay, and now save, and now I'm going to import this back into Blender. So here we are in that Blender scene, and I decided to bring these back. And on these we have 7 million polygons. Okay, let's import that back. It's this file, you see it has come down 50 times lower. So import FBX, wait a bit of time to calculate, and we're going to duplicate that sometime in here to get as much as variation as we want inside Substance. So this is it, and now we got 2 million extra polygons, and it's alright. It's compared to that 10 million, it's a bit more manageable. So let's copy this and rotate it 90 degrees so that we preserve a lot of texture space, and copy these two. It's gonna take a bit of more time because this is 4 million polygons. And now let's bring them to the other side. Okay, this is enough. For our purpose, this is enough. And we're gonna create as much variations from this as well. So let's compare them, and yeah, it's doing all right. And let's give them all a fern material. Okay, and put this into the low poly folder, and put these into the high poly. Press M and select the high poly. Okay, and now let's visualize them. I'm going to bring them into this part and create a new version of this scene and delete these, and to be able to work on the Palm kit as well. So I created a new file, and let's delete these and delete them. Okay, and now I can already tell that we are getting a lot of time and effort and resource put into these to create what we want, because it's now already 1 million piece. If we try to kit bash this, we're getting lots and lots of polygons. So I really do not want that. Let me bring this to the center, and I'm going to already bring this into ZBrush and do another decimation and bring this back so that we have easier time kit bashing this. So again, export as FBX, limit to selected, and import that again in ZBrush. Let me drag it and bring it up, and I need to decimate this down. So go to decimate and try to decimate it. And because the poly count is high, if we try to kit bash this, we are getting all sorts of troubles there. So I'm going to go into another layer of kit bashing. So take this one as well. Now this one is already good. So again, export them back as FBX and overwrite this file. Export them all and hit OK. And done. And I can safely delete these files and bring those back. It's this. And now from 1.5 million, we really came down to something like 30,000 polygons, and it's good. So let's select all of them, hit P and by loose parts. And now we need to give the pivots in these parts so that the manipulation of them is a lot easier. So this one here and this one here as well. Now we can manipulate them a lot better. So let's take these out, and I need to bring a 2x2 plane as the reference. So now start the kit bashing process. And before that, let's have a look at the palms. See, it's a fern, and the fern is so flat and straight, and there are these leaves coming out of it. So let's go to here to see that they also start thick and start to become smaller as they go to the top. So let's look at them in the action. You see them right here, and form a thing like this. We're going to first create the individual branches, and then from branches create the trees. So by looking at the references, you see we are able to guess the original shape of that. Just put some time, look at references to see what you come up with, and then start to execute. And this one also tells us a good information about the shapes of the palm leaves. You see the branch starts out, and then these in the middle start to shape and start wide and start smaller to go as they go to the top. So let's take this one, of course take all of them and duplicate. First let's go and find one that is a bit reliable, something like this one, and we can look at that as a reference and start to manipulate. Okay, duplicate this, bring this here, and have an eye on the triangle count as well. So I'm taking this, and looks like they're not so something like a spike. They have something a bit curvy in them. You see, there's something that is happening there, and they're not something like this. This is like a sword, and these are not. So let's take this, and one thing that we can to manipulate this is again bring the center of the world in here to selected, and from here create a curve. We can also go for path or start with Bezier. Let us start with Bezier, and this Bezier is good for shaping the objects. But we need to first shape this to make it right. Okay, let's go in here and start to manipulate the handles. Okay, and take this one and rotate this as well to make it first straight and then start to manipulate that. Okay, first make a straight line. Okay, something like this. And now start to shape this on the thing that we have and bring these two down and shape them something like this. Okay, we are now ready to shape this. Let's save and create a good starting point and a good starting angle as well. Okay, and now take this one and bring the curve modifier. And for the curve, select this Bezier curve. Let's see what we come up with in terms of angle. Looks like we need to manipulate it and put it in here to match the curvature a lot better. Okay, something like this. Now they are matching perfect, and now we can take this Bezier curve and start to manipulate that, to manipulate this one as well. So let's take this one and we can take this, bring it down, rotate this to something like this and put it in place. And I believe this is something good. Let's look at the reference. You see, it has a bit of curve to it, but of course the curve we're going to make it when we start to create the 3D mesh creation after the texturing process. But this one is good already. So let's take this, bring this out. And since this one is affected by this Bezier, which is this one, this Bezier, I can take this and start to manipulate that more even. For example, taking this, rotating and shaping something out from it. And I can take them all and subdivide again to add a point in between and manipulate this point as well. And just take some time to manipulate these. And let's take this, bring it right here, and place it here. And again, I'm going to bring the origin to this one, and from here also create a Bezier. And we need to form the Bezier to match the shape of this one, so that later on we are having easier time manipulating that. So let's take this, first take the handles and rotate them and bring them to match this one just a tiny bit. And this is good. Okay, I'm happy with the curve. And now let's take this curve and bring it here and rotate this one just a bit. Okay, this is good. And now I can take this, add a curve modifier, and for the curve selecting this. And I'm going to roughly bring this into the place manually, and then I'm able to get that curve and I start to manipulate that. Let's bring this down just a bit and put it in here, somewhere in here. Okay, and now I can really freely take the curve and do the manipulations that I want. For example, making this a bit smaller. First, let's take this and make this a smaller. And of course, take this one. No, let's do this in the sub level. And let's make the angle right to make it look and face towards there. And it takes a bit of time to manipulate this, but in the end the result is going to be a lot better. So let's take this and let's take it all, subdivide it to add a middle control to manipulate that. And let's take this one, rotate it to make it face in other direction. And this one as well. Let me bring this down so that they have enough spacing in between them. So take this one, and now we have these, and it's now only the matter of taking these and manipulating them. So let's make this one a smaller. And okay, this is good. And I can now take this and duplicate it to the top, and now I have to only manipulate the handles to make the form right. It's only a bit of manipulation to get this to work. And bear with me, the result is going to be worth it. Okay, this one is good also. And now let's take this and I start to manipulate the curve. And the good thing is that when you move the curve and this with it, you're getting all you need. You have the mesh, you have the modifier on it, and you have the curve also. So all you need to do is manipulating this curve to get what you want. It takes a bit of time to set up, but when you get it to work properly, it's going to be worth it. All the effort you put in here. You see, now we're getting the a starting angle and the scaling as well, right? So let's take this two and bring them to here. And I start to move this up and bring this one to origin. And let's take this, the pivot. Let me see if no, this one is good. Let's start to manipulate the shape. And now you see we are getting something above the 500,000. And it's a warning sign. We really do not want to make it a lot. And when I'm getting the starting angle, I need to make this one smaller as well. Subdivide to add a central control and bring this down, and to the last one I wanted to make it something like this. Okay, and I believe this will make a perfect bark thing, excuse me, palm thing. And take them one by one, and you only need to manipulate the curves to make the effect right. We have this one in between, and this one in here as well. here is getting a bit unnatural. This one needs to be fixed. And never try to manipulate the object. Instead, try to manipulate the curve. So we need to take this handle, take this one after that, and rotate this one. It's going to be a repetitive process, but when the last after texturing we get the result, it's going to be worth it. So let's take this and bring the curve and start to gather the curve to make this one smaller. And to the top. And let's take this, bring it here, and if you want to resize, just resize them together. Okay, this one is alright. And now let's take this curve, as always, make it go towards the top, rotate, and it's alright. And there are some more remaining to be done. So let's take this one, rescale, and do all sorts of manipulation on this. So if I increase the size of this, it follows the curve, it tries to match the curve perfectly. You see, it tries to match the curve. Okay, this one is alright as well. We need just some more, and later on we might fix this or leave it be, depending on the situation really. So let's take this one, bring it to the top. First try to match the starting angle, tightening up towards the top, and then manipulate the curve. Take this one and point it towards the top. And the palm tree is really one of the most complicated trees when it comes to 3D creation. It's really hard to create palm trees in a good way, especially without procedural softwares. When you try to hand place them together, it really takes a lot of time to create something, a palm tree that is a good thing. So let me take this and bring this to the top and try to match this. Let me see. Yeah, we have these controls, and I want to match the curvature as well. So I feel like I can make this one bigger, and for the curvature, let me take the curvature and bring this one outside just a bit. And now if I scale this, it's trying to follow the curvature as the best as it can. Okay, now we're getting somewhere good. It's taking a bit of time, but the process is really going to be worth it when you create your tree and start to visualize that inside Unreal. It's going to be worth it, I promise. It takes only a bit of hand placing details, and then after that it's really a repetitive process. You really get the hang of a lot of things. Okay, this one is getting finished, and after that let me see if I can duplicate these all across to the other side as well. So let's take another one from here, And also when it comes to texturing, we create some variations. When you look at this, you see there are some variations which are green at the top and some variations which have fallen. You see the color of these really changes dramatically towards something that is really decayed out. And we will do that as well. So let's take this and match the curvature and the size as well. Let me make this one smaller and bring this one to the top. Let's make it bigger. Okay, and now we need to do some more duplications to the top. Let me take these and the controls of that. I mean the curve, and let's resize them. And now only what we left to do is creating the controls to make this really straight to the top. We're getting 1 million. And now that I'm looking at it, I really need to come in here and take these and using a proportional editing, I start to really make this smaller. Okay, and now there's just one more remaining. And I can really bring this one also as well. Let me do something like this. And it's alright. Yeah, this is alright. But we need to make this one big enough so that it encompasses there as well. So I need to take these two, bring them down, and everyone that is on the higher level, I need to bring this down to make sure that they match. I need to bring this one out a bit, this one down a bit. I want to make the illusion that they are part of the same geometry, not something dispatched and disconnected. So this one also, I'm going to bring it down. And these ones need to be brought down as well. This one, I need to bring it out just a bit. And this one, I need to bring it down. This one as well. Okay, now that we created these, let me see what I can do about this. I can take these and I can take them all and select the curves as well. So Shift D to duplicate them, bring them here, and again in this object mode, go to mirror and global X. Okay, now we have a symmetry thing which we need to get rid of. But before that, let me take all of them, I mean all of the geometries, and go first to the face orientation mode and take all of the geometry, and then I need to go back and apply the scale so that the normals become wrong, and I select them all and recalculate them, and when I go back, they go back to their own places. So we need to get the symmetry out of this. Let's go back out of this mode, and now let me see if I can take this. Yeah, I can take this and manipulate it to get what I want really basically. Now I need to really destroy the immersion of symmetry in this. So this one is really obvious that it's symmetry. Let's take the curve. I need to take the curve, not the geometry, and it's a bit hard to grasp. It's here. Yeah, this one is here. And I need to make sure that I can remove this vertex. Yeah, this one is good. And now it really perfectly broken the symmetry for me. Just try to manipulate the curves somehow to make them look different to that side. For example, I can take this and make this something like this. And let's take the curve of this one. Curve, not the geometry. And I can displace them as well. For example, let me take this and move the curve and the geometry at the same time. So take the curve, okay, I need to bring this down just a bit. Take the middle curve and make something like this, okay. We need to bring the symmetry. So take this one, I can feel that I can make this one a smaller, and it's done. Okay, and this one and this one, I can really displace them to their own places. And let's take this one and bring it here, and some more curve manipulations need to be done. Select this, bring these two in. Let's select this and deselect the geometry. I want to select the curve only. And make it something like this. Okay, I feel like it's enough for this one, and I can take this. Let me, if I can rescale this. Yeah, the rescaling works. I want to bring them all in here. And I want to do something. I really, let's take the plane and bring these all to the top, so that when baking I really get no errors. So let's take this and this geometry and bring them down. Okay, this one was the first one, and for the second one I might go and create something like this, which is thinner. And just bear with me, we're going to create it in no time. So I'm going to duplicate this now, and I'm going to use this and introduce this broken one in here as well. So let's go, and this way I'm not using the curve modifier. I'm trying to hand place them together. So let's make it a smaller, and instead I'm going to select the three of them. Let's make this one a smaller and this one a smaller as well, and I'm taking three of them and using the proportional editing, I start to manipulate them to something like this. For example, it's a lot easier to manipulate the geometry like this. Okay, let's take these, make them smaller, and I need to bring this to the top. And now let's select them, and I can really do hand place things like this and make this one alright. And I believe this one is a lot easier in terms of working that we have to do. And let's bring the world origin to itself. And let's work on these parts as well. So I can take these, make the starting angle right, rescale, and take these and bring them to their side. Because the poly count is getting too high, we're getting a bit of problems now. So bring them in here, and it's good. Just let's attach them to the place. Yeah, this one is alright, but I need to fill this gap in. So let me take this and it's alright. And there are just some more duplicates left. Let's bring them here, and we need to make sure that the starting angle is right and then placing them in their own places. Bring this to top so that there's not so much overlapping in there. Okay, let's bring them in. I just need to do some more duplicates. Resize. And make sure that the starting angle goes fine. And since later on this is going to be baked into normal map, I'm really happy with how this is going, and I'm not going to be too concerned about this. So for this one, let me just make it a bit smaller. This one as well. And this one in here. Okay, let's look at it, and it's all right, but I need to make this smaller in here. Okay, this is working all right, and I need to take this and select this top portion, and I start to rescale it and increase the radiation size. Okay, now I'm happy with how this is going, and now let's take all of these, deselect this one, duplicate, bring them to the other side and as well mirror in global X and try to duplicate them. And I feel like I can break the symmetry just a bit by displacing these. Just some more hand placing and manipulation. You can also delete some of those so that they do not have any counterpart in that side. And if you want to really, you can select them and use and grab some of the points and start to drag them down using the proportional editing so that you get good variation in there. I just need to bring this down, something like this, and try to displace them to get enough variation. Okay, this one is good as well. Let's select them and select this one as the last one and join them together. And I need to make this one smaller. I need to fit this into 0 to 1 UV space and bring this up so that the baking gets no problem. So I should have done something. Let's go and see the face orientation, and yeah, this one needs to be fixed. So let's select all. I hope we do not get any problems. Select them all and Shift N, and it made it perfect. Okay, really fine. I can already take these. Let me take these, excluding the plane, and drag this out. And I want to go and apply the modifier on each of one of them so that they do not get affected by the curves. So I'll be back when I'm done applying the curve modifier on all of them. You simply select the geometry that you want and go in here, hit Control and A. It applies the modifier. Or if you want to, you can take this and hit apply. So let's apply them all. So I did apply all, and now I can select the curves and without any problem try to delete them. So also try to remove the curves, and let me see if I can select the curves from here, because they get all in the final alphabetic order. They get to the last ones because they are the last items repeated. And let's see if I can drag them. No, not this one. Yeah, they start from here and all the way to here. I can really delete them without any problem. And let's take all of them, select this one as the last object and Control J and join them together to make it the same object. And I can exit out of this mode and try to manipulate this. For example, make this a bit natural, and already it's becoming another variation. So let me take all of these, or take this one, and let me see if I can place this in here. So let me go back a couple of steps before rescaling this. Okay, we have this, and now we can safely take this and delete them, so that I can drag this over in here, duplicate it, make it resized a bit more stretched, and we have created a new variation. And let's do something for the palm. I can really increase the size of this one because the branches are bigger compared to each other. So I can remove this and bring a plane, and instead of 2 meters, let's make it 4 meters. And I can drag this and make it larger as well, because these ones are bigger, and I'm going to make this a 4K texture instead of 2K. So let's make it larger. Later on I will bring these on top of the plane level as well. So, and now let's take this, bring it over, let's duplicate it, and make it thinner and larger, and place this in here so that we have enough variation in terms of the branches. So you see all of them are different. So let me take this and do something to preserve a lot more texture space. For example, displacing them, making them bigger or smaller to preserve more from the texture space. Okay, and let's bring this one right just a bit, and this one also can come here. Okay, this one is good. Now I'm happy with the branches that we have created, and now we are done with the high poly creation. And now I'm going to mix all of the scenes together and finally export them to Substance. Okay, let me take these and delete them because I really do not need them. And let's take all of them and give them Shift Q, the material utility. And because we have some extra polygons in here, it's going to take a bit of time, but it's necessary. So let's give them palm leaves. Okay, and then save the scene. And I really applied the transformation on all of them, and now all of them are having the same material. So I place this one into the low poly, and all of these except for the plane into the high poly. And let's take this plane and tessellate it just a bit. And now I save the scene. Let's take an incremental save so that we have a backup scene if something goes wrong, because I'm going to merge a couple of scenes together and it's going to take a bit of performance. So in order to take a backup, I take an incremental save from this, and using the machine tools, I hit Control and S, and now in here I'm going to merge a scene into this. So I go and append, and it's going to append a .blend file into here. So let's select it, and I'm going to bring this 0.4 which I have. This one is the collection of all of those. So let me append, and in this folder I go for objects, and these are the objects that I have. Let's select them all and append. It's going to take a bit, I believe. No, it didn't. We should select them. Let's go in here for objects and let's select all of them and hit append. Okay, now it's going to take a bit of time to append those into the scene. And if it didn't work, I simply open a new Blender scene. Open the existing and copy them from there and bring them here. So in the first try, it crashed on me. So I did the same procedure. I went to append and I started to append them portion by portion. And now they have been appended perfectly, but something needs to be done, which is the refoldering them. I need to put all of them in their respective high poly and low poly folders. For example, for these four, I'm going to again put them into high poly folder. And now all of the high polys have been into the high poly, and these are the low polys. Let me take them and move them into low poly. And I can now toggle them with only a single click. This is the high poly kit, 22 million polygons, and this is the low poly kit that we have. Okay, let me what this single plane here is. Okay, let me tessellate this. It doesn't really matter if we tessellate it a bit. And now I'm going to take these and export them as a low poly. And as always, limit to selected objects and name this one foliage low and export as FBX. Let's turn this off and select these. And these are 2 million polygons. It's going to take a while to export. So I'm going to again export, rename this one to high and limit to selected objects. Okay, I'm going to export these and stop the recording and get back to when the exporting is done. Okay, and one problem that I noticed, and I'm happy that it happened, is that when I try to append this into the scene, let's see this one, for example, the material of this is fern, and the material of this is fern 0.001, which is different. So first, before exporting everything, make sure that you select all of them and give them the same material to all of them that need to be on the same material, and then re-export them. And to give them all a unique material, you simply select everything that you want, material utility, and give them a new material, for example, fern material, and then hit OK. Now all of them get the same material, and then after that you go and export the low poly separately and the high poly separately again. Okay, I fixed the material naming on all of them and re-exported them as you saw in the previous export. So I believe this is good for this chapter, and in the next chapter we're going to bring this all into Substance and try to bake them and texture them. So see you in the next lesson.